Greetings, hello, and welcome everyone to Age of Mythology Retold. Going to be doing an Xbox tutorial today on defense, towers, and walls. What kind of makes the most sense for you as a player to be defensive in Age of Mythology Retold, and hopefully you can be a little bit more better prepared for an attack from your opponent. Now, this guide is going to be suited for brand new players and beginners who've not really played a whole lot of Age of Empires or Age of Mythology before, so just be mindful of that. If you've played the game before, I might be going over some other things that you're aware of. However, this might be appropriate for everyone. You may learn something you don't know of. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I actually lied. There is one more thing I want to talk about. There is a playlist for all of the guide videos that we have done and will do in the future, so be mindful of that. Now let's go ahead and get into it. For AOM Retold, you're usually going to spawn with a handful of towers around your base. These are called sentry towers. Depending on your civ, you may actually need to upgrade these once you get into Age 2. But for opening up in the game, these towers actually, they provide some line of sight, and that's really more or less it. They do have, you can see on the bottom left here, they can have 10 housed population to garrison some villagers or units if they become under fire. However, once we get into Age 2, you'll see that these can be upgraded and they can fire arrows upon opposing forces, which is actually pretty cool. Defense can start as early as the character or the major god that you pick for your playstyle. So for me, I'm actually playing as Hades. Hades actually opens up with a defensive god power. On Xbox, you could do the left trigger and X to bring up the leader wheel, and this is the Sentinel power. You target you or an ally's town center, and it'll be protected with stone guardians. If you hover over, you can kind of see where they're going to be placed. You can actually rotate them a little bit by moving the right trigger around. So if like they kind of collide, sometimes you can kind of get robbed. You're supposed to get 4 of them. So if I put it right here, I think I'll get robbed of 1. I only get 3. So you just rotate it a little bit, put it right there with 4. Yeah, right there is good. And I've activated that god power. There's really no downside into using that, by the way. It's free. You can use it only on your town center or your ally's town center. I like putting it here right on your main town center because really that's where the bulk of your economy is going to be. Now you may be asking, what do these do? They don't really do anything until an opponent's unit comes within range. They're going to fire arrows upon an opponent. They can be destroyed, but luckily with AOM Retold, there are recharging god powers. So you can use it again either on your town center or an ally's town center. Something that's a little different in Age of Mythology compared to Age of Empires 4, if you're coming from that game, is your buildings act as walls. I've said this in a couple of videos, but I'll kind of explain what that means. So if you put 2 buildings really close to each other and then you tell a unit to kind of path to the other side, they're actually going to be blocked by that building if they're touching. Whereas, of course, if there's a gap, they'll be able to kind of path in between the gap. Age of Empires 4 does not work this way. You can actually go in between buildings with your units. That's not the case here. That can work to your advantage here in Age of Mythology Retold. It is a risk-reward type play. The risk is you can lose all of your buildings if they drop a god power or have a bunch of siege, whatever the case is, and destroy all of your buildings that are acting as walls. The reward is you don't need to really build walls because you've used your buildings as the walls. Let me kind of explain a little bit more. So I have this temple here I've built, and there's a house touching right next to it. Well, let's say I don't want units going between this house and the trees. Well, oh, let me move him out of the way, excuse me. Select the villagers. I have another house here. I'll build that here, and then I didn't really mean to rotate this. I'll put another one right there next to it. So they're going to build both these 2 houses, and what you'll end up seeing is once this is done, the villagers can no longer path this direction. Now, that means just the same as opponents coming to attack the base. They can no longer go between the temple and the trees. If I tell the villagers to go from here to there, they're going to have to walk all the way around the temple, in between the gold pile, kind of by the sentinels, close to the sentry tower to kind of get to where they want to be. You can use that to your advantage. Mostly we see this done with houses because they're cheap and they're easily replaced, but you can kind of do it with any building. I wouldn't put kind of your most important buildings as a wall. Again, your houses are probably the best, but it's up to your discretion. Another thing to keep in mind for AOM is, and really any Age of Empires game, this is kind of true, is your resources can be used to your advantage just as much defensively as it could be for the sake of you getting it for your economy. So what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is these trees here are acting as a barrier of pathing from my units and opposing units. So if I tell my villagers to chop down all of these trees, let's say it's in a strategic advantage for my opponent for these trees to be gone, I might actually open myself to more attack than previously thought. Maybe it's easier for me to go to a different tree pile, say way back here behind my base, kind of around a mountain range towards the back of the map. That's not going to be as important if this tree line goes away compared to these two tree lines, because this is kind of towards my opponent's base. So maybe I want to avoid chopping these trees so I can use these trees to my defense. Going back quickly to where your buildings can be walls, you can use this to your advantage in other ways than just making your buildings a flat-out wall. You can use that to defend your defensive buildings with your now watchtowers. These are the sentry towers that are upgraded. These will now fire arrows upon enemy units, which is great. However, that leaves them open to attack. Your opponent might be encouraged to attack this if they're getting fired upon by these towers. Well, you can easily fix that. And you see this happen a lot online, is you build some houses around your tower. Now, there's a risk-reward with this as well, as I had stated previously with your buildings being walls. The risk is well, your tower can no longer be garrisoned by your units because your units can't even path over there anymore. If they can't get to the tower, they can't get in the tower to get some security from being fired upon from opposing units. You also could maybe get your villagers stuck. They could kind of almost build themselves in. So you might want to babysit them as they build it. And then, of course, you can lose your houses and the tower instead of just the tower if your opponent attacks with an overwhelming force. And that can be what's called pop capping you, meaning you have no more population to train units until you rebuild your houses. The reward is, however, is now, since I have houses around this tower, nothing can directly attack this with melee units. That means my opponent has to attack this with either ranged units or siege or god power. But nonetheless, that's going to be a much more difficult approach for my opponent to take this out than it just being a tower. All right, let's talk a little bit about walls in Age of Mythology Retold. Walls work a little bit differently, just given the resource that's used to acquire them, but also how they're upgraded and all the rest. So compared to Age of Empires 4, there were two different walls, your wooden wall and your stone wall. In Age of Mythology, they're all the same, and they use gold because there's no stone in Age of Mythology. This is kind of where wooden walls or walls in general may not necessarily be worth it. There is so much that requires the use of gold in Age of Mythology. Basic units, upgrades, even buildings if you want to build more town centers, even temples, so on and so forth. Walls can be very expensive, and you want to make sure of the opportunity cost, meaning the resources you're putting into walls may be resources that you can't put into other things. However, let's say you do want to build walls. It's very simple on Xbox. You just press A on one spot, drag your controller, press A to another, and your villagers are going to end up building that wall. So now that you have your wall built, you can actually select any of the larger sections in between the columns of walls. You can turn that into a gate. This is going to reduce the hit points. So you can see on the bottom left, a general wooden wall is 600 hit points. Jeez, I can't talk anymore. I apologize. And the columns are 300. If I were to change this into a gate that's 15 gold, you can now see it's 500. So you lose a little bit of hit points there. You can also select any piece of wall you want to upgrade the wall. And I think it's every age, depending on your civ, on how you pick. Some of them are a little bit different. But you can upgrade your walls, and some of them can just have astronomical hit points. So it doubles the hit points, adds a line of sight, and then vulnerability to hack attacks by 10%. 200, 200. So that's going to be an investment. You can see the wall is being researched, and we'll see it change here shortly. It's not like Age of Empires 4. Units cannot get on top of the wall, and there's no, like, tower for them to climb to go over the wall either. However, any melee unit can attack this wall, like how in AoE 4, like he can only attack stone walls with like siege or something. In this, any unit can attack any wall. You can see the upgrade is done, so now you can see the stone gate has 1,000 hit points, the columns have 600 hit points, and then the stone wall itself has 1,200. We can upgrade it once again, 500 food, 400 gold. That's quite a lot. When we get into age 3, adds 3 line of sight, and again, 100% more hit points. So, you know, as the walls upgrade, they are, of course, going to get much, much better. And if you have a lot of gold, like as you can see, I have almost 6,000 gold. That's just because I've been sitting here mining 2 gold piles. But the point is if you have a lot of gold and you want to build some walls, go ahead and build some walls. In Age of Mythology Retold, you actually now have a limit on how many watchtowers you can build. You have a limit of 20. So, that, I mean, that's quite a lot, to be honest with you. I don't think that you're going to necessarily need more than 20. I think that kind of prevents people from, like, spamming them all the way around. And when you select to build one, you can actually see this blue radius around it, and that's going to be its attack range. That's where the arrows can fire upon. You can see currently, like, it's in a pretty good spot. I have almost a full 360-degree coverage of my base here. As an opponent unit comes in, all of the arrows are going to fire upon. But maybe you want to get a little bit of a head start. If you're playing as someone like Egypt, any of the Egyptian civs, you can build what's called the obelisk from your priest. That's like a giant tower that provides a lot of line of sight for very, very little gold. Or if you're the Atlanteans, you can make the oracles, which is a unit that stands there and expands its line of sight. For me, playing as the Greeks, I don't really have something to that extent, so I kind of just need to go the old-fashioned way in building towers. So maybe outside one of my bases, or my main base, I should say, I want to build an additional tower way out here. The question is why do you want to do this? The answer is, it provides a variety of benefits. One is the line of sight benefit. If I can see my opponents on the mini-map, his units, I might be able to see them all the way right here, like kind of where this mountain range and this tree line is. That would give me much more of a heads up that he's attacking me, instead of when he's like right here, right in front of the entrance to my base. Also, this looks to be a pretty good natural resource area. There is a settlement here to build a new town center on. But if I wanted to just say mine this gold or get the berry patch, I do have a little bit more security knowing that my villagers here are going to be under the coverage of this watchtower with its arrows firing upon it, and then the villagers as well can garrison in that tower if they ever need to. So you can see I already have some line of sight here. Not as much as I would have hoped, but luckily if you select any of the towers as Greeks, you can go to the signal flares, and that's going to increase the line of sight of all your buildings. We'll see that happen here in just a second. Keep in mind of where the relics are. There are some relics, which I don't think you can actually kind of look at what the description is on controller right now until like you're actually looking at it. But there are relics out there that increase the line of sight of buildings. And that's something you can use to your advantage as well, is early on with your hero units, you can pick up relics, take them back to your temple to get some gameplay buffs, mechanic buffs, I should say, whatever it is. Sometimes it's more arrows from your towers, sometimes it's more population from your town centers, other times it's increased line of sight. That will end up being helpful for you on the defensive front. Okay, a couple of last quick tips before the video ends. One thing I wanted to show you when you get to age 3 is you can build what's called a fortress that's over on the military side of your building queue. For the Greeks, you need some favors, some wood, and some gold. You can build 10 of them. I think that's actually quite a lot. The point of the fortress is they're kind of act as keeps, but they can train units too in Age of Mythology. And this radius here tells you their attack range. And they're also I call them landmark buildings. That's what you need to age up into age 4. You need at least one of these to go from age 3 to age 4. You want to put this in a pretty good position because this can attack enemy units, and this can be a great deterrence for particular areas. Like right here, maybe you want to see, like, does your opponent have any sort of control of this town center or resources? Or maybe up here I want to build what's called a proxy, adding additional military buildings closer to an opponent's base. I kind of want to make sure that these 2 gold piles are protected right here. And maybe I'll expand my farms and more of my base. I'll put that there, And just for the sake of time, I'm going to send all these villagers to go build upon it. Now, when you build this, it has both range arrow damage as well as garrison slots. It has 20 garrison slots, which is much more than the 10 of towers and the 4 attack. This has 13 attack and 20 garrison slots. So you can put this at where a lot of your villagers are if they're working. The reason why I'm putting this here is if they're working on both of these gold piles. And while we don't have necessarily the bell to call my villagers to this, I think if I just hit the bell, they will go there. Yeah, they do. So they garrisoned in that tower, and then I can kind of ungarrison them here. If you want to manually do that, you can, by the way. If you hover over a building, do you see kind of on that mid panel to the left, as I hover away, it will, it has like this door icon. Just press X. Grab some villagers and press X, and they will garrison there. And now you can have all those villagers there. Now, they will be idle, and the flag on the top will show you that they are garrisoned in there. And I have so many idle villagers. Let me see if I can hit up. Okay, so it actually doesn't show them as idle. So if I press up on the D-pad, it doesn't actually show the villagers in here that are idle. I'm not sure if they're ever going to change that or not, but you need to be aware. You can kind of see, again, at that panel, it says 20 villagers down there. You look somewhere, and if you hold X, you can press X individually to make one villager kind of escape one at a time. So I'll do that a little bit slower. Press X there. There's one villager. Set the rally point here. There's another villager. You know, whatever. But if, let's say I want all the villagers to exit the fortress right here. Just set your rally point, press and hold X, and there's all the rest of them. I hope this video did some good for you. Please let me know in the comments down below of any other tips you want to give players for, particularly for defense. Towers, walls, buildings, keeps, all the rest. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. And again, we have a whole bunch of tutorials already on the channel for Age of Mythology Retold, geared towards new players, as well as multiplayer videos of us diving in to online games. That's all available for you to check out on the channel, and there you have playlists there for that. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.